Every room has a hierarchy. Whether you see it or not, it's always there. In any social situation, there are only two types of people, those who control the room and those who are controlled by it. The difference between them: it's not about looks, it's not about money, it's about one thing: psychological control. You've seen it before. The person who walks into a room and instantly commands attention without saying a word, the one who makes people listen, the one who decides how things unfold. And then there's everyone else, the ones who follow, who react, who get caught in the flow of the conversation instead of directing it. Whether it's in business, relationships, or even casual conversations, if you don't understand the dark tactics of social influence, you will always be at a disadvantage. In this video, I'll break down 6 powerful dark social tactics, strategies used by elite persuaders, high-level negotiators, and dominant personalities to win in any social situation. Let's begin. The frame control, setting the rules of engagement. Every conversation is a battle for control. The question is, who sets the rules? In any social interaction, there's always an invisible structure at play. It dictates who leads and who follows. This is called a frame, and whoever controls the frame controls the entire interaction. Most people don't realize this. They enter conversations blindly, reacting instead of directing, and by doing that, they let someone else take control. But the most dominant personalities, they never let that happen. They impose their frame from the start and make others adapt to them. Whoever controls the frame controls the conversation. A frame is the lens through which reality is perceived. It defines what's important, who holds power, and what direction the conversation takes. And here's the rule. There is always a dominant frame and a submissive frame. The strongest frame always wins. Think about this. Why do some people command attention the moment they speak, while others struggle to be heard? It's not about what they say, it's about how they say it. They speak with certainty. They act as if their words are law, and people unconsciously accept that frame. But if you fail to set the frame, someone else will set it for you, and once that happens, you're no longer in control. How social hierarchies are built through frames. Look at any high-status individual, leaders, CEOs, dominant personalities. They don't ask for permission. They don't seek validation. They act like they're in charge, and the world adjusts accordingly. Because here's the truth. People follow those who assume they should be followed. This is how social hierarchies are built, not by force, but by perception. And that perception is controlled through framing, by setting expectations, controlling the narrative, and making others play by your rules. So how do you shift the frame in your favor? How high-status individuals impose their frame without force. Powerful people never argue for dominance. They assume it. They don't react emotionally. When someone tries to provoke them, they remain calm, because reacting means accepting the other person's frame. They dictate the tone. Instead of answering questions directly, they reframe them in a way that benefits them. They never chase validation. Seeking approval instantly weakens your frame, because the moment you seek validation, you've accepted someone else's rules. Here's an example. Someone asks you, "Why should we listen to you?" A weak response? Defending yourself, listing your qualifications, trying to prove something. A strong response? Smiling, pausing and saying, "You'll see." Now, instead of justifying yourself, you've shifted the frame. They're now waiting to be convinced on your terms. That's the power of controlling the frame. Practical exercise. The frame challenge. Drill. Want to train yourself to break weak frames and impose your own? Try this: 1. Next time someone makes a strong statement, pause. Say nothing for 3 seconds. Let the tension build. 2. Instead of agreeing or disagreeing, challenge the frame. Respond with, "That's one way to see it, but here's another." 3. Observe their reaction. If they hesitate, backtrack, or change their tone, you've successfully broken their frame. Master this, and you'll never be controlled by someone else's narrative again. But once you control the frame, how do you make sure people follow? The power of silent dominance. Power isn't loud. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't fight to be noticed. The most powerful person in the room isn't the one speaking the most, it's the one speaking the least. Silence isn't passive. It's not weakness. It's a weapon. And when used correctly, it forces others to adjust to you without you having to say a word. Why the loudest person in the room is never the most powerful. Think about the last time you saw someone truly in control. Did they need to dominate the conversation? Did they demand attention? Or did they simply exist, calm, composed, and completely in control? Meanwhile, the ones who talk the most, they're chasing attention. They're trying to prove something. And in doing so, they reveal exactly how little power they actually have. Power isn't about talking. It's about making people wait for your words. How silence creates an aura of control. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill it. They over-explain. They try to keep the energy flowing. But the moment you master silence, you shift the entire dynamic. Now they adjust to you. Here's how you make it work. Stillness equals presence. Powerful people don't fidget. They don't rush. They take up space, not with movement, but with certainty. Pauses equals control. The moment you pause mid-sentence, people wait. They anticipate your next words because the silence makes them uncomfortable. Eye contact equals command. Holding eye contact in silence makes people feel exposed, vulnerable, and completely under your frame. This is why the most dominant individuals, CEOs, military leaders, and master negotiators use silence to make others submit. How high-status individuals use silence to control situations. Picture this. You're in a negotiation. One side is talking fast, throwing numbers, making arguments, trying to control the deal. But on the other side, the person in charge just listens. They say little. Their words are precise, calculated, final. And in between, silence. Long, deliberate silence that forces the other side to keep talking, to over-explain, to reveal weaknesses, to fill the void. And that's when control shifts, not to the one who spoke the most, but to the one who waited the longest. This isn't just a business tactic, it's a psychological weapon. And it works in every social situation. Practical exercise. The 3-second pause. Want to test the power of silence for yourself? Try this: 1. Next time someone asks you a question, pause for 3 seconds before responding. Maintain eye contact. Say nothing. Let the tension build. 3. Observe their reaction. most people will start shifting, over-explaining, or trying to fill the silence. The more you practice this, the more you'll see. The less you react, the more power you have. But controlling the room isn't enough. You also need to control perception. The art of subtle manipulation, making people think it was their idea. The most effective manipulation isn't forceful. It isn't aggressive. It doesn't look like manipulation at all. True influence happens when people believe they made the decision themselves. Because when someone thinks an idea is theirs, they defend it, they commit to it, they follow through. And that's the key to subtle control, making people want to do what you wanted all along. How to influence people without them realizing it. Most people assume influence is about persuasion, convincing others with logic, arguments, or authority. But real influence doesn't look like persuasion. It looks like free will. The moment someone feels pressured, they resist. But if they believe they arrived at the conclusion themselves, they accept it fully, without hesitation. That's why the best influencers don't argue, they guide, they don't push, they redirect. Instead of telling people what to do, they make them feel like they're choosing it. The power of guided choices, how to make people believe it was their decision. Guided choices are simple. You don't give people one option, you give them two or more. But here's the trick. Every option benefits you. For example, instead of saying, "Do you want to work with me?" you say, "Would you prefer to start Monday or Wednesday?" Same outcome, but now, the question isn't if they'll agree, it's how they'll agree. This works because the brain prefers decisions over resistance. When given two choices, people instinctively pick one, because rejecting both feels unnatural. That's why politicians, salespeople, and power players never push an idea directly. They present guided choices, making people feel in control, when in reality, they were being led all along. How expert salespeople and politicians control public opinion. Politicians never ask, "Should we do this or not?" They ask, "Should we do it this way or that way?" The real decision, the one that benefits them, was already made. They just disguise it as a choice. Salespeople do the same thing. Instead of saying, "Do you want to buy this?" they say, "Would you like the standard version or the premium package?" The customer feels like they're choosing, but in reality, the sale was inevitable. This is how high-level persuaders win, by letting people choose the path they were already on. Practical exercise, the illusion of choice. Want to use this in real life? Try this : 1. Next time you want someone to agree with you, don't ask a yes or no question. Instead, give them two options, both leading to your desired outcome. 2. Observe their reaction. If they choose an option without realizing the structure, you've successfully guided them. Practice refining your phrasing. The more natural it sounds, the more effective it becomes. When done right, people won't just follow your lead. They'll believe it was their idea all along. But what happens when someone tries to challenge your influence? The dominance loop, keeping control in any conversation. Power isn't about talking more. It's not about proving yourself. It's about control. And in every conversation, there's a battle for control, whether you realize it or not. The moment someone challenges you, two things can happen. Either you react, or you make them react to you. And the difference is the difference between power and submission. Because true dominance isn't about aggression. It's not about overpowering others. It's about staying in control, no matter what. The psychology of verbal dominance. How to stay in control, even in confrontations. Most people lose power the second they feel attacked. They defend. They explain. They justify themselves. And the moment you defend, you've already lost. Verbal dominance isn't about winning arguments. It's about never being pulled into them. Because the moment you react emotionally, you're letting someone else set the frame. And the real power move is making them adjust to you. How to deflect attacks and reverse pressure without escalating conflict. The biggest mistake people make in confrontations, trying to fight back directly. But the real way to stay in control is to redirect, to deflect, to let the other person overcommit, then flip the pressure back onto them. The power of questions. Instead of defending, respond with a question that puts the pressure back on them. Example: someone says, "Why should we listen to you?" A weak response. Defending yourself, trying to prove your worth. A strong response. Pausing and saying, "Why do you feel the need to ask that?" Now they're on the defensive. Now they're explaining themselves to you. The power of reframing. Change the entire angle of the conversation. Example: if someone says, "You don't know what you're talking about," instead of arguing back, simply say, "Interesting, what makes you think that?" Now, instead of proving yourself, you've made them justify their own words, shifting the pressure. The power of non-reactivity. Sometimes the best response is no response, a slow smirk, a slight nod, a pause that lets the silence make them uncomfortable. Because when you don't react, you send a clear message. Their words have no power over you. How master debaters and high-level lawyers dismantle opposition with precision. Ever watched a top lawyer in court? A master debater in action? They never raise their voice. They never rush. They never let emotion dictate their response. Instead, they do one thing. They control the flow. They listen. They wait. They let the other person overcommit. Then they strike with precision. Because verbal dominance isn't about who talks the most. It's about who controls the rhythm. And in every interaction, the person who controls the rhythm controls the entire conversation. Practical exercise: verbal jujitsu. Want to practice controlling conversations effortlessly? Try this: 1. Next time someone challenges you, pause. Don't respond immediately. Let the tension build. 2. Instead of answering directly, flip it back with a question. What makes you think that? Or, that's an interesting assumption. Why do you say that? 3. Observe. Watch how they hesitate, rethink, or shift their tone. Because once you stop reacting, you force the world to react to you. Now let's go deeper. How do you make people respect you instinctively? Social priming. Programming people's perception of you. Most people think first impressions happen naturally, that how people perceive them is just random. But the truth? First impressions are engineered. They are not accidental. Because before you even open your mouth, people have already made up their minds about you. And if you're not in control of that perception, someone else is. This is where priming comes in, the psychological technique that high-status individuals use to shape how others see them before a single word is spoken. How first impressions are engineered, not accidental. Your presence alone sends a message, and people pick up on that message, consciously or subconsciously, within seconds. What you wear, how you walk, your posture, your energy, even the way you take up space. All of these things send signals about who you are and where you stand in the hierarchy. And the key, people believe what they expect to believe. If they expect you to be powerful, they will treat you as powerful. If they expect you to be weak, they will treat you as weak. That's why priming is so powerful, because it lets you dictate the expectation before they even realize it. The science behind priming, subconsciously making people see you as powerful. Priming works because the human brain is wired for shortcuts. People don't have time to analyze every little thing about you, so instead, their brain fills in the blanks based on the signals you give them. If you look like someone in control, act like someone in control, and move like someone in control, they will assume you are in control. And once that expectation is set, everything you do is filtered through that lens. If you speak confidently, they think, of course, that's what powerful people do. If you stay silent, they assume it's intentional, a power move, because they already believe you hold status. This is why high-status individuals don't ask for respect. They prime people to give it to them automatically. How high-status individuals craft their image before they even speak. Think about the most dominant personalities you've seen in business, politics, or social circles. They don't just walk into a room. They arrive. They carry themselves with certainty. They don't fidget. They don't hesitate. They own the space. And before they even say a word, people have already made a decision about them. This is no accident. It's social priming in action. And here's the most important part. Once a first impression is set, it's incredibly hard to change. That means if you set the right expectation from the start, you control the entire interaction. Practical exercise, the priming effect. Want to test this in real life? Try this: 1. Before entering any social setting, decide how you want to be perceived. Not what you'll say, but what you'll project. Adjust your posture, walk slower, take up space, speak less, but with intention. 3. Observe how people react differently. Watch how they subconsciously mirror your energy. Because once you set the frame, people will follow it without even realizing why. But what if I told you that the less people see you, the more they'll want you? But what if you want to make someone obsessed with you? The scarcity effect, making people chase you. People don't chase what's always available, they chase what they think they can't have. This is why scarcity is one of the most powerful psychological forces in human behavior. Because the moment something feels rare, exclusive, or hard to get, people value it more. And if you understand how to use this correctly, you can make people chase you. Why people value what they can't have and how to use it to your advantage. Human psychology is simple. We take abundance for granted, and we desire what feels limited. When someone is too available, whether it's in friendships, dating, or business, their value drops. But when something is hard to access, people assume it's more valuable, even if nothing has actually changed. This is why the most powerful individuals in any social setting are never too accessible. They create an illusion of distance, not because they need to, but because they know it makes them more desirable. How reducing availability increases social desirability. Think about the people who always seem to have high social value. They don't chase conversations, they don't force interactions, they don't overexpose themselves. Instead, they create an element of unpredictability. One day, they're present, engaging, making an impact. The next, they're gone, silent, unreachable. And this absence creates a void, a psychological gap that makes people want more. Because the moment you disappear, people start wondering about you. And when they start wondering about you, they start thinking about you, obsessing over you, craving your presence. How celebrities, power figures, and elite brands create demand through scarcity. Scarcity isn't just a social tactic, it's an empire-building strategy. Think about luxury brands. They don't flood the market. They limit access. They create exclusivity. And because of that, people are willing to pay more for what's hard to get. Think about celebrities. The ones who are constantly in the media lose their mystery. But the ones who disappear for months, then suddenly return, they dominate attention instantly. Scarcity works because it makes people appreciate what they think they might lose. And the same rule applies to your presence. If people always expect you to be around, they stop valuing your time. But if you become unpredictable, if you create selective absence, your presence becomes something rare, something valuable. Practical exercise, controlled absence. Want to apply this immediately? Here's how. 1. Reduce your availability. Stop responding instantly. Take longer to reply. Make people wait for your presence. 2. Disappear strategically. If you're always present in a social group, step back for a while. Let people notice your absence. 3. Return with impact. When you reappear, do it deliberately. Bring energy. Command attention. Make it feel like an event. The key to being chased is knowing when to pull away. Because the moment you stop giving unlimited access is the moment people start craving it. Now, let's put it all together. How do you become completely untouchable in social situations? Final strategy: becoming socially unstoppable. Mastering social dominance isn't about using one or two tactics. It's about combining them, layering them together until you become untouchable. You've learned how to control frames, how to use silence as a weapon, how to make people think your ideas are their own, how to stay dominant in conversation, how to prime perception, and how to make people chase you. But now, let's take it further. Let's talk about what separates the good from the truly unstoppable. How to combine these tactics to dominate any social setting. Most people use influence like a tool, picking one strategy at a time, hoping it works. But the most dominant individuals, they don't use influence, they become influence. They don't just control conversations, they control the environment. They don't just create scarcity, they become the person people feel lucky to be around. They don't just avoid chasing approval, they make approval chase them. And the key to all of it? Being completely immune to external influence. Why true power isn't about controlling others. It's about being immune to their influence. Most people are reactive. They adapt based on how others treat them. They adjust their personality depending on who's in the room. But true power doesn't work that way. True power is when your presence dictates the energy, when you walk into a room and people adjust to you. That's what it means to be socially unstoppable. It's not about forcing people to respect you. It's about making it impossible for them not to. Because the moment you stop reacting, the moment you stop needing anything from anyone, you become untouchable. No one can control you. No one can shake you. And that makes you more powerful than 99% of people in any room you walk into. Example. Why the most socially dominant people don't chase approval. They create it. Look at the highest status individuals, leaders, celebrities, the most magnetic personalities. Do they seek validation? Do they try to impress people? Do they over-explain themselves? Number. They exist in a way that demands approval without ever chasing it. They project certainty. They create their own standards. They don't need permission to be respected. They make people feel privileged to be in their space. And that's the difference between social status and social dominance. People follow those who don't seek validation. The moment you stop chasing approval, you gain control. Master these tactics, and you won't just win social situations, you'll own them. Which of these tactics do you think is the most powerful? More importantly, which one will you start using today? Drop a comment below. Hit like if you found this valuable, and subscribe for more psychological dominance strategies.